Okay, it's Basic Folk, honest conversations with folk musicians. I'm Cindy House. Today on the podcast, we have Ethan Gruska, who you may or may not be familiar with. He was in an indie-ish band with his sister Barbara called the Belle Brigade. If you saw Ray LaMontagne in 2016, they opened for him and then were his backing band. And he has many other claims to fame, which we definitely will get into throughout the podcast. But first, let's thank our sponsors on Basic Folk. Basic Folk receives support from McDean, songwriters who love each other. McDean would be delighted to send you a free CD of their first EP, The Sampler Plate. Email lin@mcdean.co. lin@mcdean.co to get one. Basic Folk is supported financially and emotionally by motivational life coach Janet Forrest. Janet works with individuals with big dreams who need support and accountability to get moving. Visit janetforrest.com to learn more. Mention Basic Folk and you will receive 25% off your first month of coaching. In 2017, Ethan Gruska put out his solo debut album called Slowmotionary. It was gorgeous, cinematic, mystical, just transformative, and a very helpful record for me personally that year. It was such a gorgeous album. So I'm so psyched to have him on the podcast. Again, he was in the band The Belle Brigade with Barbara, and since then that band has ended. Life has consisted of returning back to the piano. The Belle Brigade was very guitar driven, not that he doesn't play the guitar in his solo work, but the piano, his original instrument, also concentrating on his solo work, that gorgeous album Slowmotionary, and also something new in the future that we don't know exactly when it will be released. And producing albums. He co-produced Phoebe Bridgers' debut record that came out in 2017. We touch upon topics ranging from his mother's stroke, which happened right after Ethan was born. And oh man, they made this, NBC made this, after school special type of movie about that, which we get right into, and it's so bizarre. Actually, I'll link that on my website, cindyhouse.net. Also, by the way, his grandfather is the composer-conductor John Williams, which we talk about. And also, Ethan is really interested in magic tricks. So of course we talk about that. I try to get Ethan to explain how his music is so good, but we just kind of come to the conclusion that the world is a mystery and life is beautiful, or something like that. This is a fun conversation. Glad you're here to listen to it. We're going to check out one of his songs from Slowmotionary, and then we'll get into our conversation with Ethan Gruska. Here is The Valley on Basic Folk.
I'm driving through the valley. My whole childhood was here. Early memories of my family. Mom and Dad were still together for the first couple years. I remember just barely. I never really cared, and I still don't, to tell the truth. But if childhood defines you, can it ever be behind you?
So I want to start asking you about the story of what happened to your mom when you were born.
Sure. Yeah. So she had a stroke when I was born, and I'm sure it was induced by labor. She always likes to tell me, because she's sweet, that it would have happened to her at some point, and the fact that she was in the hospital, is that I saved her life, but I think I nearly killed her. And she made a full 100% recovery, which was pretty miraculous. But yeah, she struggled for the first year of my life, and I've never had feelings about that because I was too young. But I'm sure it's a part of me.
Does that have any further effect on your family, that story?
I think for everybody, it just was, for my older sister, who was 7 at the time, totally traumatic. For my dad, very traumatic. It was just a complete emergency, and I think that changes the fabric of your DNA. when you just go through something like that. You become stronger in many ways, but then you also probably become more skittish and just nervous that shit like that is going to happen.
Yeah, I saw that NBC made a movie.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen it?
I saw it when I was a kid. I mean, that is truly the weirdest
Yeah,
aspect of my whole life.
Yeah. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, because they didn't change the first names of your family members.
That, honestly, I couldn't talk about it because I haven't seen it. I don't even know where to find it.
It's on YouTube.
Is it really?
I'll send you the link.
Please do, or please don't. I almost don't want to hear.
Yeah.
I know that they changed certain stuff, and they made everything much more dramatic than it was in its sort of TV way. Like interpersonal relationships, I don't think apparently we're not accurate, but they sort of took like the general arc of what happened, and then, but who knows how I almost forget that is even a thing.
Yeah, I didn't watch the whole thing because it's like 3 hours long.
And it's very like early 90s sort of, it's, I don't think it did well even then, and it definitely wouldn't have aged well from what I remember.
Well, what's interesting about it is that there are like some pretty significant actors in it. Like Mara Wilson plays your sister.
Yes.
And your dad is played by, I can't remember the guy's name, Cole, the guy from like Office Space, the guy that's like, I'm going to have you come in on Saturday.
No way. Is that really?
Yeah.
That's my dad?
Yeah.
He's my father? Oh my God.
The Office Space guy.
Wow.
Also, I'm wondering about knowing that story about your mom make you feel differently about your worth when you were a little kid, in terms of the fact that like she went through so much to get you here, so that must mean that like you deserve good things.
I mean, that would be a nice way of looking at it. For me, the way that I always think about it is I tend to err more towards the side of what does that mean for me, like, as a soul, to maybe have not had my mom around immediately when I was born. And so sometimes, not really a lot, but sometimes I'll think, like, I wonder how that plays into my sort of molecular thought process, and just my anxieties or things like that. It's kind of not worth it to me to think about, because it's something that I'll never be able to get access to, because there's no memory. It's all speculative. So it's
you
just
don't have
like,
the statistics.
we don't have the statistics, and it's just like, it's almost pointless, but I do really believe that everything at that time like is a part of you. So it's interesting to think about, but I don't really know. It's like something that's always going to be mysterious to me, which I like to think about that.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, we could probably go on.
I mean, honestly, it's interesting. Like I probably should think about it more. But it's sort of, because she made like a full recovery, it sort of like almost gets like glossed over. I mean, it's such a huge part of her life, I think, but even, I don't know, like there have been more significant things even in her life, than that.
It's like not her identity.
No, not at all. I mean, it's a part of her for sure, but she doesn't claim that as like a huge part of her identity. And she's such a beast. I mean, she's had a really crazy life, and she's always survived it. So
it'd be interesting to have a conversation with her.
Oh, you absolutely should. She has some really crazy stories about being in the coma, and basically having like, not telepathic experiences, but experiences where she felt like she could hear what people were thinking in the room,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so your dad, Jay Gruska, is a songwriter who's worked on multiple projects, composing for film, TV. He's won a lot of awards for his songwriting, and it seems like he's always done different things with his musical talent. So in what kind of ways do you see parallels between you and your dad?
So parallel. He's such a talented guy, and he started making his own records, and then started writing songs for other people, and then started producing songs for other people and producing records for other people, and then finally landed in film scoring, which is where he had his most sort of personal success. But that's sort of like almost exactly what I've done. I started making my own records and then writing songs for other people and then producing other people. And I would love to. I actually just scored a film, a documentary, and so it makes me laugh. Like it's sort of fate in that way, but probably just because he just worked really, really hard, and I always watched that, and it probably sunk into me like that. Because he was so not one-dimensional, it was maybe makes me feel like I'm able to do stuff that I've never tried. I don't know.
I want to talk about your grandfather.
Sure.
John Williams. We're in Boston, so
Yeah.
it's very significant.
Totally. He's the dude here.
Yeah, he's so the dude. So you once said about John Williams, your grandfather, that he once told you that all my musical inspiration comes from things other than music, so he looks to nature, books, poetry for his creative spark. What kind of impression did that make on you?
Yeah, I think when I was like 16, I hung out with him, which was kind of, we would see each other occasionally, but it was rare because he's so busy and like he's a very private guy. But when we, hung with him and sort of was like, what can I do to be a better musician? What is your advice to an aspiring composer? And which was it's such a weird thing to be.
You're like, I'm asking for a friend.
Yeah, seriously, it's bizarre that he's even that I, the connection, because he's, a titan of what he does. So, it that is not lost on me. But he basically was like, you have to, he's funny. Like, I remember one of the cards that he wrote me for my birthday was like, patience, it's like rigor, like this very like antiquated language of like this like old adage of like, but it's, that's his.
What's his penmanship like?
Beautiful. He's
like it's like a symphonic.
Yeah, absolutely. It is the penmanship of a composer. It's like and everything about him is like that. It's just it all manifests in the way that you would imagine. My wife said something really true about him, which is that he is the type of mind that if it wasn't music, I think it would have been something else that he would have been pretty masterful at. He
just operates on a higher level.
He's just like on some weird trip. But yeah, I think that had a big impact on me. Just him hearing somebody say that once you get past a certain point of ability, then where do you draw from? It's not necessarily just all other music. So like, just be a rounded human. I think that's what it really means.
Do you watch his films?
Totally.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite?
E.T., I think.
Oh, duh. Okay.
Well,
the way that you looked at me when you said E.T., you were like, E.T.
No, not like it's obvious. I just like that score paired with that movie just like makes me emotional. He's such an interesting guy, and his music speaks louder than he does. That music in particular really reminds me of, like, most deeply of who he is.
What kind of music was resonating with you growing up, and who was bringing you the good stuff?
Definitely my sister Barbara bringing me the good stuff. She opened up my world for years in a row, I grew up, my family is like a Beatles, like Paul Simon, James Taylor family, like just really good, solid tunes and songwriting.
I want to talk about Paul Simon, that he was a big deal for you.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the album what your like go-to is. Most likely it's Graceland, but I'm interested regardless, and like what drew you to his sound.
It probably is Graceland, just because that's the first one that like got me in. Because
and how old were you, do you think?
It was in my mom's car like for like 10 years. Like that was just like always in slot 5. You know what I mean? Like she had one of those 6 CD things. So, I was probably like 12 when I remember hearing that record and it not connecting with it as a kid.
Oh yeah.
Because it just like sonically wasn't as like clean as what I liked as a kid. It's very clean in hearing it now, but it like was like a kid of the 90s, and everything was like so sheeny and polished in the universe.
This is not Third Eye Blind.
Yeah, exactly. This is not Sum 41. But maybe I was like 14 or 15, Graceland, just that song just like clicked, and I was like, oh shit, this is the best thing ever. And so that for me probably is a record, but I really love Rhythm of the Saints. I really love 2 records ago, So Beautiful, So What.
Oh yeah.
I think that is amazing. I also love Still Crazy. I love every one of his records.
Have you ever seen any like interviews or documentaries with Paul Simon?
Yeah, he's
super weird.
He's a heavy dude. Like his energy is hard to like sort of pick up on for me.
Yeah,
I don't know who he is.
It's like the old adage of just listen to the music, don't get to know that person.
Yeah, I don't want to, because it's like it's just like he has such a glory and mystery in my mind, and it's just like
Let's keep it.
Yeah. I just love how I know him now.
You and your sister Barbara were in the Belle Brigade. What was your relationship growing up, and how did it evolve as you became adults?
Growing up, we didn't necessarily get along. We weren't like always at odds with each other, but we oftentimes were like not at the same house at the same time, and like I was 6.5 years younger. It didn't click until I was maybe like 16 or 17, and then she just became my best friend. Just like so supportive of me, taught me so much, just taught me like how to be a person, and I still feel just like so much love for her for that, and she really took care of me emotionally, and then we started working together every day and remain really close friends, and we just don't work together anymore, but we spent a long time doing one thing, and both of us were just sort of like gotta open the world up, but we've always been close since then.
Playing music with your sister, can you describe what that was like for you?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, she taught me so much. She was already playing in great bands in LA and touring when she invited me to play with her. And so, I remember the first couple rehearsals that we would have, like trying out our songs, she would be like really honest, like you when you are playing like that and you're rushing or you're dragging, like all these things that like are super important to me and how I hear. She just was really instrumental in that, and I mean, it's just crazy playing with somebody that shares a history with you, because it just like manifests in a, you just get that weird sibling stuff.
Synergy.
It locks. The harmonies feel uniquely phrasing, connected, all that stuff. So it's awesome. I miss playing with Barb. She actually is playing a little bit on my new record, and she just kills it.
There's a new record?
Yeah, there's a new one that I'm just finishing.
I'm not ready for it.
Me neither. It's super different.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So the Belle Brigade sounds really different than your solo material, at least like that we know of so far with your one solo record.
Totally.
Can you just briefly describe the sound of the Belle Brigade, and then what caused the shift into what you sounded like on Slowmotionary?
Yeah. The Belle Brigade is like all about just sort of energy and pep, It's like we were young and we were just excited. It sounds really excited to me now, in a good and a bad way, because of course when you're looking at your own stuff, it's like you judge yourself harder than anything, but I hear like a lot of earnestness and eagerness, and I think that to me isn't as like cool or like necessarily what I want to hear anymore, but I look back on it and like love that we were both just like gleefully trying, but those records I feel like have some awesome songs, and we had great friends who played amazingly on it, so I'm proud of those records. They're just I wanted to like make a big shift, which is why I made the really sparse arrhythmic Slowmotionary stuff. And that felt not like a shift more just like that's how I started. Like the songs that I wrote when I was really young, like 15 and 16, they were kind of like those. So the Belle Brigade felt more like a shift in my own writing than Slowmotionary did for me as like as a writer.
Have you ever considered life coaching? It's a thing that is happening, and I've got a great person to recommend to you, Janet Forrest, who you may have heard, sponsored at the beginning and end of Basic Folk. It's coaching by Janet Forrest. You can go to her website, janetforrest.com. Myself, I've done some sessions with her and found that she is a great listener. She is a great person to hold you accountable and help you move forward in your professional life in order to be a happier and more positively functioning person in the workplace. I think that's a very powerful thing. A powerful gift is to be able to work with someone who you can say, like, all of these frustrations are happening with me, and Janet has the tools and the vocabulary to name what's happening to you and help you create a plan to move forward. janetforrest.com to find out more. Mention Basic Folk, you get 25% off of your sessions. janetforrest.com. You say that making your record Slowmotionary, a lot of art inspired that record that didn't require a huge attention span but commanded a lot of attention, which is kind of like what you came up with in song form, like you were looking for a short thing that could pack a punch. Can you talk about the frankness of your songwriting and how those different inspirations made it onto the record?
It's really hard to. I feel like I can try. I don't really like. I think it's just what comes naturally for me to be upfront. I'm not a very good liar. You know, I'm actually terrible at it. Like I can barely keep a secret at all. And so it's like in life, I mean, and so
sounds like it's almost funny.
It's I have a story too where like I was at my friend's house when I was like 5 or something, and he like went into his brother's safe, and like I took like $2 in change. And I remember coming back to the car, and my sister was in the back seat, and she just saw my face and immediately knew that somehow she knew that I had like taken something. But it's just like I've never been able to just like, I don't know. It's either that I'm a bad actor or a bad liar. I'm glad I am, but I just feel like with songs, like I can't pull off a character. I'm trying more and more because I'm obsessed with writers that can do that, but it's really hard for me because I just feel like it's a confidence thing, you know? Like, you have to, like, own whoever you're being. And I think as I get older, that gets easier, but in younger years for me, I don't think it would have been possible.
I find so much wisdom in your songs, and wondering, I don't know if this is an easy question to answer, but where do you think that comes from in you, and how have you, like, cultivated that wisdom, and you're so profoundly able to transform that into your songs?
Thank you so much.
No.
All I can say is I appreciate that, because I don't know. I don't think I could. A lot of times, the stuff that I hear back or I'm proud of, that I think, oh, that has some value. Those words, I think that they kind of. I don't even realize they do the moment they happen. You know, like there's something about writing where, like, for me, where I don't know. It's really a weird thing. It's like it's hard for me to.
Seems like it can be a very like mystical process.
It feels a little mystical to me for sure, because why would sometimes I would have something cool to say and sometimes not? You know, like I can think about the same thing anytime I want, but it will mean something very different to me. You know, it's just so, timing is so weird that when something wise comes out and you can grab it, maybe I feel like I can be pretty patient when I'm writing. Songs can take me a year. I think maybe sometimes people won't sit around on it that long, so maybe that's a good thing. But I don't know.
You talked about Tony Berg working with you on Slowmotionary, and Tony seems to have been very generous with his time, and he gave you, it seems, as much studio time as you wanted. No?
Totally.
Yes?
Yeah, no, I'm shaking my head not as a no, but as like, he's a total angel to me.
Can you talk about maybe what that means for somebody trying to make a record who just like has endless amounts of studio time?
Well, let me put it this way. It wasn't endless because basically I would get in there whenever he had the time. So it wasn't like he was like, all right, take it, we're done when we're done. It's been more like that now because we work together and we have a relationship where we are, partners on things. But that was what was great about it was that it ended up taking a long time because that was the only way to get in those windows. But that taught me that it's good to have the gaps between, and I think it's a bad thing if somebody has endless time in a row on a record. I think that is a recipe for shooting yourself way in the foot. But if you have endless time on a record in chunks, I think that's awesome. because then you have time to go, God, this is not right. Or listen to something that happened a long time ago, shit, why did we change that, So... And that's kind of Tony's way. Like, he's always jumping around and has, a lot going on. And it can seem a little bit frazzled, but then always by the end of the project, you're like, wow, I'm really happy it happened that way. I'm really happy that it was just, not in this weird, scheduled chunk, but just in this, super frenetic way.
You've been producing some records. You co-produced Phoebe Bridgers with Tony.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just so incredible. I just kind of want to hear what you have to say about what it was like to work with her on her debut record and maybe what you learned about yourself during that process.
So much. I mean, still learning, because it's the first, not only was it the first record that I ever got that kind of a title on, a producer, but it's also the first record that I've ever been a part of that has had that kind of success. And so watching her keep going with it and then doing other projects and just rolling has been a huge learning experience for me as an artist and as somebody that still works with her. I mean, we're working on some new stuff, and she's amazing. She's just an incredible songwriter. I always sort of feel like, I'm really proud of all the stuff that I added on her record, and I feel like I did good stuff. But, Phoebe is great. She would be great in any frame, And I feel like that's sort of what I did, and sort of what I am learning about production is that you're just sort of helping create the frame around the beautiful art that is there, that they make. And I think that it was, I don't know, it was enormous learning experience and enormously lucky that I was asked to be a part, because it just has helped me in so many ways. So that's a big moment for me.
Let's talk about Blake Mills.
Yeah.
What is your connection to him?
Biggest fan. Seriously. Biggest fan.
He's awesome.
He is so brilliant, and my connection for the better part of however long we've known each other has been fan and peripheral friend. And then as I've worked more with Tony is Blake's mentor as well. And Tony and Blake now run Sound City Studios in Los Angeles, which is this super historic, great studio. They run it together, and I'm basically there every day working with Tony, and so I see Blake a lot more now, and it's amazing to be working on a project, whether it's my own or producing other stuff, and then walk into the other room and hear what he's doing. Because it's equally disturbing and incredible and inspiring, because you walk in and you're like, ooh, man, he is light years ahead of everybody.
In terms of his producing or his guitar playing?
It's just everything.
Everything.
He's such an alien, He's just I like to do magic tricks. I like to do card tricks and stuff, and
didn't you want to be a magician when you grew up?
I did want to be a magician, but one time I was doing a magic trick for Blake, and it was one of my more. I was trying to impress him, because he's just I'm a fan of his. I love him, but I was showing him a trick, and then he was like, "Oh, that was really good. That was really sick." And then he was like, "Okay, give me the deck of cards. And he just looked at the deck of cards and he goes, okay, think of a card. I thought of a card. And then he just told me the card, which is not a trick. I mean, that is like serious clairvoyance. And it's just like, that's my favorite thing about him, because he has a magical ability to like channel, and he does it so well with his music. So first fan, then friend, then more and more colleague, and he's worked a lot on my record. He's played on every record that I've ever made.
Sounds like he's really in your head too, if he was able to guess
he's
that.
He's very in my head,
yeah.
and I'll keep him there because I grow from that.
What do you like about the art of an album versus like singles? What do you appreciate about the opportunity to have someone's attention for an entire record?
I prefer that when it's my own thing, though I know that like now it's hard to. I mean, I find myself not listening to whole albums.
Right. Well, I guess like regardless of that.
Yeah, just what
do you like about it?
Okay, totally.
You don't have to talk about it,
If it's like a single or something, I like, it just is because I love the song, or I love it's just, the single is just like, I just love what it is. Mm-hmm. With the record, I usually like, I just like when it can hold me, and then keep, I mean, I'm very skittish with my attention. So I love when records can keep me really engaged, but not all of them can do that. So I even love records that just have a tone, like a movie. They just have, I like variety too. I don't like when records are samey. I like a lot of different colors, but I also like an underlying thing. I mean, I guess that applies to everything for me. I like asymmetry a lot.
Can you recall an early record, or maybe just any record that like has kind of struck you in its completeness?
Yeah, I think Talking Book is an unbelievable record. Stevie Wonder. The only problem with that record is that it starts with "You Are the Sunshine of My Life," which is a great song, and it's so sweet and it's beautiful and everything, but it's a little bit like, it's one of his more sort of like kitschy songs to me. Mm-hmm. Like if the record didn't start with that, it would just be like, oh my God, it's like exactly my taste.
Yeah, it seems like that song, I think I agree with you on that tune. Like,
it's wonderful. It's just,
but it's like a certain, I love talking about this. It's like a certain type of manipulation in a song that doesn't work for some people.
It has a little bit of a pandering in there, like, where it's like trying to be this like sweet sort of like, I mean, look, if I had written that song, I would be stoked.
We probably wouldn't be sitting here right now.
We'd be sitting at the Ritz-Carlton if I, no, I mean, like, I can't knock it. I love it.
Yeah.
It's just like, it doesn't make the record more perfect to me. It actually sort of detracts a little bit. But let me think. Blake's first record, I think, is a pretty perfect record.
Yeah.
I don't know, Rubber Soul. That's a perfect record.
But yeah, that's a pretty good one.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, that has that thing where it's just like every song is super different, but then at the end of the day, it's a Beatles record. I mean, it's silly to like even mention them because of course they're the best.
Yeah, there's like certain artists when you're in conversation with people, well, at least for me, like when people ask me like, what's your favorite music? It's like, do I have to say Bob Dylan and Johnny Cash and Joni Mitchell and
totally.
Nina Simone and Aretha Franklin? Because like, don't
we
we all
some
love
built-in
them?
shit? Yeah. You know what? Another really really big one for me is Elliott Smith. I think Either Or is a pretty perfect record. I love Figure 8 too. I love XO. I love all of his records. He's a pretty major dude for me as well.
Is there something you could say to growing up in Los Angeles and being an Elliott Smith fan that maybe resonates more with you? Yeah,
maybe so. I mean, it's awesome to be able to walk by that wall, the Figure 8 wall. They fix it? I think they did fix it. They made it like a like it's like part of an establishment now that's like called the Figure 8 Bar or something, and maybe it's not around anymore. I actually don't know, but yeah, it's still there, and they took off all the weird like graffitis that had happened on there. But I think that it definitely is. Yeah, it's cool to know that he was like. He was a part of it all there, and it's cool to know people that knew him. That can tell me about like what he was like beyond the sort of mystique of like his story.
Seems like just based on like watching interviews and documentaries that he was like a very funny, pleasant person.
I think that like the sort of, and like even in like the 33 and a third book about XO, I just like people who like try to remind that, yeah, his music was really sad, and he was obviously a troubled dude, but like he also like, yeah, he had such a bright side too. Obviously, I think, yeah, I don't want to speculate because I don't know, but yeah, like I think that, I don't know, sad music, like it always bums me out when like people like talk about sad music like that. Man, like that person must be so sad, you know what I mean? Because it's like, to me, like that is warming to me, you know, like it.
Yeah.
It's so. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm sure you feel the same. I think most people do feel the same. It's just like a weird sort of.
Well, I
glitch.
think it's what's funny is that I have a question that kind of like ties into this, but I think it's kind of like such a patriarchal point of view that like
showing emotion.
Yeah,
you shouldn't. Stoicism is more important. All
right.
That shit.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So like, here's the question that I had for you about that. So I read this comment about how someone could see artists, especially female artists, covering your songs. So what is your opinion on like male sensitivity, and do you feel like society allows for men to be like gentle and honest?
Oh, I don't know. Definitely not society. I mean, it's not that they don't allow for it. It's just there's so many jerks, you know? Just like, and like, I don't know, like, need I say more than Trump is president? I mean, it's like it all like manifests into this obvious thing. Like, there's a lot of bad male energy, and being that affects me all the time. Thinking about that, fuck, man. Like, I don't want to be a part of that. Have I done it accidentally? All these things, you know. It's and for me, yeah, music is a great way for me to try to express to people that I am a man. I also really want tenderness, and you know, I want to express things that aren't stoic, you know, and so, and I think there's definitely a lot of areas for men to do that, which is great, and I think there's also areas where it's not okay, and or it's just like you get like judged, but man, I don't know, it's like I don't really know how to talk about it because it's just so like frustrating, you know, because it's the same thing of anybody, just like people are so locked. Society locks us into.
What about your experience as somebody who does have like a gentle sound?
Yeah, I think that sometimes like I worry like. Yeah, like I worry about judgment because of that sometimes, because I worry that it maybe like pigeonholes me, because that's how I feel, is like I'm more dynamic than just a guy, or you know what I mean, or just whatever it is. So
yeah, I wonder if there was any conversation when you went from the Belle Brigade, which did sound like so excited and dynamic and very like upbeat, to Slowmotionary, which is like completely different. Like, did anybody say like any comments made about that transition?
Yeah, I think I would like catch like a vibe of like maybe people like found it too sensitive or too sleepy, or you know, people, I mean, stoicism for people is really important. I mean, And I understand it. Like, I understand that it's, I mean, I try to be stoic all the time and try to be harder and all these things, and because it's protection. But then it, like, I think just my...
But that's so interesting to hear, because your sound is, even in the Belle Brigade, your sound is so vulnerable.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I think I prefer people who wear it on their sleeves.
Yeah.
I just prefer that, and it's hard. Like, I wish the world was more like that. It's not. I think most people want to or have to hide it, and I don't really know. I guess making my contribution vulnerable is all I can do.
Yeah, I think it's a arc in the right direction.
Well, thanks.
For humanity.
I appreciate that.
No problem.
That's really nice. And yeah, sometimes I do get embarrassed about, being too upfront about my sensitivity or something, but it's really nice to know that, that you like it.
Yeah. It's not just me.
Cool.
So I do have one more question that, like, doesn't relate to that at all, and I also want to hear some details about this new record.
Yeah. The one thing about it is that nobody knows that it's, like, done or anything. So it's like,
should we not?
Well, we
talk
can,
about it?
totally, we can. I mean,
Okay.
it's not. I don't know when it's going to be released yet, but it's different. It still has vulnerability, but it's not sparse or mellow. Like, to get to me in the picture, you have to sort of go through a little bit more of, like, an obstacle course.
Yeah.
It is a little bit more. It has. I don't know. It's got a lot more energy, and it's a lot more rhythmic. And because of, like, the rhythm section being more involved, it creates, like, a different soapbox that I'm standing on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like maybe before I was, like, in, like, a waterbed, and now I'm sitting on the third place rung of a little trophy triangle, The only reason why I say that is because the record cover is me as a kid I'll show you. I made a shirt of it. It's me, like, holding a trophy trying to act tough, which actually kind of goes into our last...
Look at that lean.
Yeah.
Listeners, you should see this lean. Is that a soccer trophy?
That's a soccer
That can't
trophy.
be yours.
It probably wasn't, because I would have never deserved that. I was never good at soccer.
That's really funny.
Yeah, so, but it actually, it's funny that we were just talking about that, because it is a little bit of a tougher record. And it deals with a little bit more my harder side, which is more, not necessarily about me wanting more of that in my life, but more coming to terms with what that is for me, and almost how to use it to my advantage rather than get me into trouble and get me frustrated about my life and my relationships and all that stuff, and just letting it help me be in charge of my own world without being stubborn or something like that.
All right, so I do this thing called the lightning round.
Okay.
Where I ask you...
I'm terrible at stuff like this, but I'll try.
Okay, great. Well, they're all about you.
Okay.
So, well,
I'm
not you
so
personally.
not a quick guy.
Okay, well, some of these are facts.
Okay.
All right, so we'll take a break and then come back for the lightning round.
Okay.
Basic Folk is brought to you in part by Tina and Her Pony, a queer duo bringing traditional Appalachian music and vocal harmonies into the 21st century. Visit tinaandherpony.com. This episode of Basic Folk receives support in more ways than one from motivational life coach Janet Forrest, who helps individuals see their own potential, overcome obstacles, and move forward. Visit janetforrest.com and mention Basic Folk. You'll receive 25% off your first month of coaching. And thanks to WIUP in Indiana, Pennsylvania, which airs Basic Folk 2 p.m. Eastern every Saturday. You can listen on 90.1 if you're in the Indiana, PA area, or at their website, wiupfm.org. All right, here we go. Lightning round.
Okay.
Ethan,
Yes.
Dogs, cats, or something else?
Dogs.
First album you bought with your own money?
Stevie Wonder best greatest hits type thing. It was like, greatest hits.
First concert?
Oh, I don't remember. I think somebody in my class took me to the Rolling Stones at Dodger Stadium. I'm pretty sure that was my first concert.
Somebody?
So a girl in my class, her dad had tickets and she took me to go see the Rolling Stones. I don't know if that was my first concert, but that was like the first big concert I ever went to.
Dream collaboration?
Debussy.
That would be a really good one.
But like somebody current.
It can be not current too.
I would love to make something with James Blake or Bon Iver. I think they're awesome.
Oh yeah, that would be great. Favorite type of white noise?
Favorite type of white noise? Pink noise.
Pink noise?
Yeah, like it's like like if you're like doing synthesis, like white noise is usually something you can dial into a sound.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's funny that that's what you mean. I guess you mean like cars or rain or but like if you're on a synthesizer, you can go in and that's really funny. You can go in and you can choose pink noise, which is like instead of that, it's like more like it's just
that
like a softer.
Good.
So pink noise.
Maybe we don't know the answer to this question. Beatles or Rolling Stones?
Beatles.
Morning person or night owl?
Night owl.
Gibson, Martin, or Fender?
I would say for acoustics, it's Gibson. And for electrics, it's Gibson. So, yeah.
Flying or invisibility?
Flying or invisibility? Flying.
Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Wars.
What did you have for breakfast today?
I went to George Howell, is that what it's called? Coffee shop?
Is it around here?
Yeah. It's like a good coffee shop. I had like a egg breakfast sandwich.
Oh, very good. Okay, this is a question my friend Samantha has trademarked. If you were a doll, what accessories would come in your box?
I'd be a magician.
That sounds about right. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Totally, that was fun.
Love that guy. I guess what struck me so much about Ethan Gruska is like his music is so emotional, and I mean we talked about it a bit in the podcast about how his music, it's not necessarily like depressing, but it definitely is sensitive and filled with like the intricacies of life. But then talking to him, he's just like this charismatic, lovely, down-to-earth human being, Ethan Gruska. Couldn't like him enough. All right. I want to say thanks to you for checking out the podcast today. Laura McCarthy is our producer. Lindsay Myers is our business manager. Music by Alex Stanton of Townspeople. Check out show notes at cindyhouse.net. You can subscribe to our mailing list. And also check out our Facebook page, Basic Folk Basics. I think that's it. Really on top of things today. Okay, we'll talk to you next week. Bye.